So, Janet, tell us what brings you to ThrillerFest. Is this your first year here?
It is. This is my first year, and the reason I'm here is that Kim Howe, who has written a fantastic book called Freedom Broker, with a kick-ass female protagonist. It's kind of a female Jack Reacher, but a really complex, interesting character, has entrusted her film and television rights to my care and ministrations, and so we're beginning that long journey.
What are some key characteristics of a novel that would make someone want to option that for film or TV?
I think it would be compelling characters, an interesting storyline. I really feel as a producer that I'm a storyteller first and foremost, and in order to tell interesting stories, I think you need to have strong, interesting, conflicted characters to take you through those stories.
Right,
So
right.
I'm really attracted to complexity and shades of gray as opposed to cliche, which is not necessarily what's normative in what we see in, big Hollywood movies these
Right,
days.
right. Yeah, yeah. I really like it if a character, maybe they're like not a nice person, but then they have some redeeming qualities, like not when it's just all black and white.
Absolutely, yeah. So anyway, that is what attracted me to Kim's books and other books that I've optioned and worked on. I mean, they're all long journeys. It takes a long time and lots of starts and stops.
Right. What does go into that? Like, if you could mystify the process of that a little bit for any of
You know
our
something,
viewers.
it varies. Everything has a different story, I think. Fair Game, which I produced,
Yeah.
I actually met Valerie Plame through a friend of mine in Washington, D.C., and she actually knew Valerie because of her granddaughter and Valerie's child. But my husband and I had been very active in supporting embryonic stem cell politics in Washington, D.C., and we really had gone up against the Bush administration in
Yeah.
making sure that stem cell research wasn't made illegal in this country.
Yeah.
And Valerie had already been in the Vanity Fair article that really made her so famous, but she was in the midst of lots of controversy and a lot of stress, and I think she wanted to meet with me because A, I was a woman, and B, I think she didn't feel that the politics of the day would encumber me or,
Right.
you know, was something that I would shy away of. So we met at my friend's house, and we stayed up all night long talking. She was leaving the CIA, but she was still there, and so we had a dialogue and exchange for a full year before we were able to move forward, and that was before her book came out, long before the book, and a little different from what's normative is that the book and the book proposal came after our agreement to work
Oh,
together.
yeah, yeah. So
It's
that's not really
unusual.
typical.
It's not so much
Yeah.
typical. Yeah, yeah,
So a lot of times it does come from relationships.
absolutely. Yeah, relationships, interesting people. I mean, there are news stories that are optioned.
Right.
I mean, film and television starts so many different ways.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So it's not really like a straightforward
No,
path.
no, there is, and every author will tell you, terrible war stories of
Yeah,
Hollywood. So,
yeah.
and I have my own. I have many of them, and you just have to, you know, keep, you have to be I'm the tortoise as opposed to the hare, I think, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, okay, this is going to be the exception, you know, this is going to, this book or this project is just going to leap forward. And then the next day, I mean, I had a project, and the second at the studio said, I love this, I'm buying this. And then 5 days later, the president of the studio was let go and left.
Oh, wow.
And it came to a screeching halt.
Wow, so like a lot can
A
happen.
lot can happen, and you just have to stay steady on course, and, you know, believe in the material and the, and, you know, and the author and your characters.
Yeah. And what are some of the challenges for women in Hollywood?
I think that it's actually starting to be a better time for women right now. I think statistically, for quite a long time, women in higher level positions, and that would be producers, working writers, directors, were 14%. It went down to 9%.
Wow.
So when you really look at those statistics, it's a little depressing.
Yeah.
And this was still through a time. At one point, we had 3 studio presidents. You know, we had. You know, we had Sherry Lansing, we had Stacey Snider, we had Amy Pascal. So you'd look at this and think, wow, what a great time for women. But women were still operating within a male world and a world, speaking of features and studios, where we've seen the corporatization of film studios. But I think really in the last year, I think, and some of this has been driven, I think, by women's reaction to our new administration.
Yeah. People are more
People are more
outspoken.
activated and more energized and politicized, and we're seeing more women. I mean, there were 2 female directors directing studio films, you know.
Wow.
So
we have a far way to go.
But it's starting to change now.
Yeah.
You know, Wonder Woman was directed by a woman. Night Game was directed by the Netflix series by Susan Beers, and she did an amazing job. Michelle McLaren, HBO has done lots of Game of Thrones, and she's a kick-ass female director.
And Jessica Jones, the second season, is all female directors.
Yeah.
I was excited to hear that.
Yeah, so it's really changing, yeah.
And now, before we started rolling, you told me that you had a funny story from one of your
how I became,
films.
yes, how I got my first credit. Yeah, well, actually, it was an EP credit.
Okay.
But and what happened is that we were in London making First Night, which my husband Jerry Zucker was directing, and it was Sean Connery, Richard Gere, and Julia Ormond, and it was a big, you know, it was a big studio picture with movie stars and horses and shooting in slate mines and all kinds of, you know, crazy night shooting. We had months and months of night shooting.
Oh, wow.
But what happened was, very early on, they were having a heat spell in London, very unstereotypical.
Yeah.
And Sean was dressed in armor, sitting around the round table. There was no air conditioning, and he was sweating and very uncomfortable. And the producer was there, and I said to him, I said, you better get an air conditioning out here.
Yeah.
And he said, loud enough for Sean to hear, well, this is London, and Pinewood, we don't have air conditioning, and it's, you know, you can't get an air conditioning unit. And I was like, I think you better. So I went off and started calling around the city to get portable air conditioning, and Sean erupted, and and said that this producer could never be in his sight line again. And
Oh,
he was
wow.
like, she's going to be my producer now.
Oh, wow.
And anyway, I took over the reins of this giant.
So from caring about the actors and their comfort.
Yeah, and part
You-
of that, I started as a manager. I managed.
Right, as a talent manager.
And writers and directors.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
so I knew how important all that was.
Yeah, yeah.
But it really is. I mean, in terms of performance. I mean, now it's different if you're, if you're trapped in a desert, then, or you're playing a soldier, and, then you want that the actor signs up for that, and they understand.
Right. Yeah.
What
yeah,
they
if
need
they're
to
gonna
do.
Be out in the elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was that was my Hollywood story of my
that's
first
funny.
major credit.
Do you have any advice for anyone who wants to break into Hollywood and become a producer?
It's a long road. I mean, most producers, I think, they start off as assistants, whether they're an assistant to an agent, a manager, another producer, a director. And I really am an old school producer, so I think it's very important that the crew, everyone respects you, but also feels that you're not coming from an elite,
Yeah.
place. So if there's garbage, I'll pick it up. I mean,
that's
I roll up my sleeves. So again, everyone has their own style.
Right.
But for me, I think we're all in it together, and it's important that everyone feel that way and feel invested.
And feel like the producer cares.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you really do have to pay your dues.
Right. You can't just go in off the gate
and you can come from, Harvard, Yale. You can be a lawyer, an MBA, go through the USC Peter Stark program, and you come out and you start as an assistant.
Right.
You do not start as a producer. Now, things have changed with the internet, and, there are a lot of different entry levels now in terms of if you get involved in, like, small, internet productions or, do YouTube, but, kind of the traditional route is, and actually a lot of writers get going as assistants too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, thank you so
You're
much for
welcome.
speaking with us.
Thank you.